A roamer over this whole world over.
And the therapist, we had mentioned several times, and we'll be mentioning over and over again, those 4 words. What upholds your existence?
As happy as me, you'll never see. Represent for the peaks. Represent for the streets.
The terrifying word, even though tens of millions of people are unhappy, unhealthy, unfit, except for minor changes like switching to another brand of product, most of us want nothing to do with change. It's not going to happen. Change is another enemy, just like emotions. You might think about that. Why should change be so uncomfortable, so painful? Something you will resist constantly. Because it means breaking a habit. It doesn't sit right in your head and throws off your equilibrium, and it's downright uncomfortable. It is. I'll give you a small example. And some of my dear friends sitting here know our home. Got a shelf in the living room with mementos, things that are very important to me. And all of us have some mementos, someplace in a box, somewhere. Well, I've got them on a shelf. So about, I guess, a year ago, a very quiet moment, Nan and I are sitting, and she's turning to me and saying, how would you feel if I, move some of that stuff around a little bit? And immediately, don't, please. Clean up with a dust rag, I understand that, but leave them alone, please, honey. I'd really love to see them just as they are. Make a long story short, I have in recent years committed myself to lots of changes like that, and to the biggest one of all, to say yes instead of no. So after a little bit of cajoling, I said, okay, Dad, go ahead, but please, I wanted to say, please don't do too much. And she was quite forthright, this little thing we got in Newfoundland, this thing belongs in your office. It's not a family momentum. It's not something to be enshrined here. To make another long story short, I came back the next evening and I looked at it and, oh my God. My first reaction was, oh my God, drama. Literally, And to make another long story short, I started struggling through that, and it took about 3 or 4 days for it to begin to normalize. And after a couple of weeks, I kind of looked at it and said, it looks great. No problem. But I had to put myself through so many changes in order to accept this minor change. And it's not like she's asking me to amputate the arm or do something, move a few things around. I've become very, very good at that, because Nan likes to reinvent and move and shuffle things around. And I'll just look and I'll let myself process my feelings, which is always, and I'll say, sure, go ahead, okay. The process of change becomes even more frightening as we age. Old habits become more entrenched. We don't want to give them up, even if they're killing us. Now, you've got to look at the reality of the way we operate as people. You would think that if something was hurting a person, disturbing a person, not working to their benefit, not upholding existence on any level, in fact, the exact opposite, you would think that at least the barest they would say is, I'm going to do something. Some years ago, I had a guy who was seeing me for a number of things like depression. And one day he called me and said, you can do me a favor. And I said, what? He said, well, you're very organized. I can see that you are. And I live in some clutter. And I have a hard time organizing papers and stuff like that. And I was wondering if you'd be willing to come over to my place and give me some tips about how I can do something about this. And I said, sure, okay. So I get his address and we arrange for time. And I get to him, they didn't call them condos at that time, co-ops they called them then. So I get to his co-op and ring the bell and he opens the door. And as soon as he opens the door, I couldn't believe it. The stench. I mean, it came at you like a wave. And I just looked inside. Clutter, my God. Absolute debris and filth everywhere and crap everywhere, right to the ceiling. I don't know how he could manage to get through the apartment. I stepped inside, feeling, oh my God. I didn't want to look at the kitchen. I wouldn't open the refrigerator door, much less look at the bathroom. And I looked at him and I said, and I knew this man quite well. He'd been coming to me for about 1.5 years. I said, how can you live this way? And he looked at me with, sad eyes and said, well, truth is I'm very used to it. And I'd be afraid to change it. I don't know how I would feel if I changed it. Yeah. This coincides with emotional problems as well, such as depression. I had a call one day, and the voice was obviously that of a person who was really hurting very, very badly. And she says, I'm 38 years old. I was diagnosed with various mental illnesses when I was 20, including depression, severe depression. I've been on meds for 18 years. I can no longer tolerate the drugs, and I'm at a point where I'm suicidal. Can you help me? I said, come in and, we'll talk. Comes in to see me. And the first thing I do, my primary job as a therapist, is to read people, just like I'm reading a script. Find out what the deal is. And with people who are depressed and who've been on medications for a long period of time, I want to determine how bad they are. Are they still lucid, or have the meds so affected them that their being is quite altered, which does happen. By and large, she was in better shape than I would have expected, at least lucid and clear about what she was feeling and how desperately she was. And we talked for about 40 minutes, and I turned to her and I said, truth of the matter is, you are no more severely depressed than I am. Now, I said that with the idea of giving her some sense of hope, positivity. What do you think happened? She looked at me. Suspicion, anger. She stared at my credentials and my license. And she looked at me as if to say, how dare you take away my depression? So what I'm getting at is, you would think people would want to rid themselves of these horrors. No, absolutely not, because they're habits, and we're afraid to change them, no matter how bad they are. Like the dope fiend. You think the dope fiend, the guy running around sticking needles in his arms, wants to rid himself of the horrors of drug addiction? Hell no. It's the last thing in the world he wants to do. Attitudes build up over decades and are embedded in our minds, locked in place. I am who I am. Can't change, won't change, don't want to talk about it. Talk about a defense, what a perfect one. I don't want to talk about it. Ways of locking ourselves in place and refusing to change, not even look at the possibility of changing something. That's the way I was born, it's me. I couldn't be different if I tried, no way. I was this way when we met and you didn't complain. Why start now? That's a great one with, There's nothing I want to do more than to change, but I don't think it's possible. You add ego and plain stubbornness to the mix and the door to change is closed. Ego, important to know what ego is because most people don't. Most people confuse ego with pride. They're not one and the same. They're totally unrelated. They're not even distant cousins. If I spend 30 years, which I did, writing a book on the healthcare system, and finally I get it done, it's not quite like having a baby, but it's in a certain way, it's a birth. and you feel good. I mean, we've all done things and accomplished things, right? Creative things, loving things, school things, whatever. Building things. You have a right to feel good about it. That's pride, self-esteem. I did this. Great. Maybe it's a form of validating ourselves. Now, hopefully we won't take it to the point of vanity. We start lording it over other people and acting as if we're superior in some way. But even that is vanity. It has nothing to do with ego. Ego is something that is totally destructive. The best definition of ego that I've ever heard, and which I use, was formulated by an Indian master named Thakur, who I speak of frequently in these classes. And Thakur's definition of ego is that which, when opposed, seeks to assert itself, is ego. That which, when opposed, seeks to assert itself is ego. When opposed, becomes a contest, it becomes a fight, a battle. I am right, you are wrong. I cannot be wrong, you are wrong. At the age of 9, I told my brother, I said, Marco, your way of thinking is that there are two ways of thinking, yours and the wrong way. And that's the way he thought. And most of us are like that. We are ego-driven. When the ego dissolves, when we allow it to dissolve, then and there we're capable of all qualities. That's the most important change to make in life. Let that ego dissolve. You might think that that would put you in a very vulnerable position and weaken you. No, absolutely not. Again, common sense and discernment goes alongside of every concept and tool. But the ego is self-destructive and destructive to other human beings and will hold you back from those values, those higher values that you would wish to possess. You cannot attain those things while the ego is entrenched. We have a two-party system in America. Neither has any interest in change. Absolutely none. Nada. In spite of the great need for change, society as a whole continues to flounder. We won't budge from entrenched positions, so we remain polarized on all issues. Everything is polarized because of the way we think, which is so very limited. Our thought process is limited to yes or no, good or bad, right or wrong, black or white. It's like vote Democrat or vote Republican. You're in favor of this or you're not in favor of it. That's the only way we can think. One or the other, totally polarized. As opposed to, there are thousands and thousands of different ways of looking at things, different perceptions, but we are strictly polarized and won't budge from that position. Destructive standards such as defensiveness, denial, and ego rule our lives. That's another triangle, along with the human condition of emotional overload, mental debris, and physical disability. This secondary triangle is another part of the human condition that weakens us so much. Defensiveness. We immediately defend. Instantaneously. We're confronted about anything, challenged about anything, questioned about anything. We immediately defend. No, no, no. Denial. We deny everything. And we're trained to. Everyone we see around us, again, no models. All the models are all in denial. Church is in denial. Lawyers are in denial. Doctors are in denial. Everyone denies. You can literally catch a thief with his hand in your pocket, holding onto your wallet, trying to grab it. Call the cop and he'll yell, "You're defaming me. I'm going to sue you." You'll deny it. In fact, there was a famous case in New York City about 20 years ago. A guy sitting on a subway minding his business, and 3 guys surround him with knives. They want his money. He happens to have a gun. He's got a license for it. He takes out the gun and shoots one of the guys. To make a very long story short, this was a famous court case. The guy was charged and served time. These guys were trying to, rob him, but it's okay. Everyone can deny. And ego, so that combination, defensiveness, denial, and ego, If anything needs changing, it's that, because that can wreak havoc on our lives, affect every one of our relationships with every human being that we come into contact with, and certainly with our own friends, and more than certain with our own family and loved ones. Misery loves company, so people won't encourage friends and family to change. My father was on his deathbed. I saw him the night before he died. My father was not a philosopher. He was a chef, great chef, but he didn't talk much. Didn't have much to say in the way of ideas or thoughts or philosophy. And on his deathbed that night, he just held my hand and he said two things. One, take care of your mother. And two, always remember this, son. Misery loves company. I was 14 and a half at the time. I wasn't quite sure what that meant. But I remembered his words. And over the years I began to see how that operates. Indeed, misery loves company. We tend to want to pull people into our space in life, into our problems. We want to share the crap, indulge in it, and even advise others to do the same. Oh, you're not feeling well? Do what I do. Call your doctor and get an antidepressant. Misery loves company. Relationships stagnate and remain in a permanent rut with no hope for change. How many relationships I've seen like that over the years. It's so painful to see. People have gone along that way 20, 30, 40, 50 years in a rut. Afraid to move, afraid to change. You've all seen this, right? How often I've had people say, no, I don't like to be with my mother and father because they have no relationship. They don't talk to one another. I've had hundreds of people say, I've never seen my mother and father hold each other's hand or kiss. In such a total rut. But change? No. Rather than change, most people would choose to live a miserable existence like that guy I told you about in his filthy home. Rather do that. And by the way, the guy was wealthy. I even said, I'll get on the phone, I'll call in the cleaning service and get go on, you can take a vacation. You've been telling me you want to, visit places. Take a vacation, we'll get the whole place changed, you'll come back, there'll be no. By the way, I saw him 10 years later, absolutely no change. Absolutely none. Except for technological advancement, we're still going over the same ground. My dear departed friend Ed Spencer, when he was aboard a troop ship going over to the war in Europe in 1943 or 44, he stood on the deck. He didn't want to be below because it was so hard to be with so many people in one space, and he stood on the deck, half freezing and walking back and forth, repeating the same words about what he was now involved in and where he was going. Oh God, why is it we keep going over the same ground over and over again? Because we don't change. We revisit the same thing and we keep going over and over. Nothing has changed even now with that. Technologically, we've advanced, as we said earlier about the computers and the rest. But at what cost? Certainly at the very barest, at the cost of most of our social skills. We don't even know how to greet someone or write off with a salutation. Everything is cold and matter of fact. Enter into the exciting arena of change. The key to success is change, even the painful lessons that put us through the changes. We'll feel pain, we'll be frightened, but we become free human beings. We're liberated, we can change. We don't have to be terrified of new ground, new ideas, new patterns of behavior. We can rebound from anything. We have to be willing to change. It need not be regarded as something to fear and dread. That's pure drama. It is. We create this drama in our mind, this fear of changing. Change can be exciting, rewarding, and fun, more uplifting than most challenges. Think of change as exploration and discovery. That's truly what it's all about. The act as if is the primary change agent and must be employed in many ways. Now, we've talked about the act as if many times, and we'll keep on talking about it. It is the way in which we learn and the way in which we change. Now, it goes under different names, many of which are too much psychologically oriented and medically oriented and rocket science stuff, as opposed to act as if. Simple language. The actor auditions for a part. If he's lucky enough or fortunate enough or talented enough to get the part, he's handed a script and told, start studying your lines and script and be here 8 o'clock Monday morning, we start rehearsal. So he goes home and he starts reading through it and looking and reading his character, trying to understand who he's going to be portraying. And then he gets to rehearsal on Monday morning and they talk about the theme and plot and conflict of the story and resolution, and they start rehearsing. Now this guy's playing a part. He's not that character. He knows that. He's playing a part. He's acting as if he is this person. Now I want to separate that from pretense. It's not pretense. It's not fake. You accuse any actor of pretending, he'll get very angry at you. Actor doesn't want to pretend. An actor wants to identify with the character he's portraying and be that character. That's the whole process of acting. So it's not pretense, but he is acting as if he is this person. Well, with each actor, the act as if period varies. It's like some people get on lines quickly. I'm very fast on lines. I can memorize a script in about 2.5 days. Other people can't. It's a different process for each person. Movie actors are the same. Most movie actors, if they are pros, want to be able to do a take in 2 takes. Do a scene in 2 takes. That's it. 3 the most. I was in the movie Hook with Dustin Hoffman. Dustin's got more Academy Award nominations than any actor in history. Won more Academy Awards than any best actor than the actor. Got 4 lines to say. 4 words. 4 simple words. You know how many takes? When we got to 30, we stopped counting. He goes at it slower. That's okay. We each have our own processing. What I'm getting at is you're going from acting as if to thinking as if you are that character. Now you're beginning to think like this person. Not only about the words, the dialogue in the script, but about the missing scenes. Because the author's only written a 2 or 2.5 hour play. The character's got a life outside of that. What is that life? You've got to start thinking about that life. And as you get further into rehearsal, you're off book now, you're getting closer to opening night, you transition into feeling as if you are that character. And then curtain opens, you are that character. That's the way in which we learn. Go back to early childhood. We're living in East Quogue on a farm, Long Island. Nan and I in our kitchen. Our son Billy is 10 months old. He's holding on to Nan's apron. He lets go of the apron, takes his first steps. And we, oh, wow, that's a biggie. And you see that, it's like a big, wonderful moment. Takes a few more steps, then falls down and then crawls back to Nan. Over the days, Billy continues to act as if he can walk. Purely act as if, because all he's doing is mimicking, copying the adults that he's seen for all those months. He still gets up in the morning and gets down on all fours, and takes him a couple minutes to realize he does this thing called walking now. And after whatever the appropriate time is, the morning arrives where he doesn't have to get down on all fours, where he knows he can walk. Now he's thinking like a walker and experimenting, going up staircases and down underneath things. And after whatever time is necessary, he is a walker. Same is true with potty training. Same is true with driving a car, learning to drive a car. I remember in Newfoundland, I practically inherited a brand new Morris Minor when I got there. I'd never driven, so I take 4 lessons, applied to take a test, and I get in my little Morris Minor, and the Mountie, about 6'8", I thought his head was going to go through the roof, looked at me, didn't even say good morning, and I'm in for it. Failed the test. Took 6 more driving lessons. barely passed. So now I got this card saying I'm a licensed driver. I get in the car. The first time I drove by myself, I almost ran right into a truck. I literally just had to stop. Was I a driver? Hell no. I was barely acting as if I was a driver. It took at least 5 months for it to transition into the thought process of really experiencing enough that I now knew that I was pretty okay driving. And I don't know how much later I finally felt like a driver. That's the way we learn everything, and that's the way we change. But there's an inherent danger in this. Just as it's the way in which we learn everything and change everything, it works for both good and bad. A person can wake up one morning and say, I'm going to act as if I'm a saint. I'm going to study what saints do. What they do, they are charitable and giving and caring and kind and loving and unselfish. So this guy starts acting as if he's a saint. And this is going to be quite an act as if, of course. It's going to take him several years before he really is thinking along the lines of a saint. And eventually, he will end up feeling like a saint. He may not be adjudged a saint by the church, but he's going to reach a point where the act as if will have transitioned into that final stage. And he'll really be thought of by friends and people around him as a saint. That same person, on the other hand, could wake up one morning and say, my ambition is to be a serial killer. I'm going to act as if I'm a serial killer. And go off studying what serial killers do. And go through the same process, acting as if you're a serial killer, beginning to think like one, finally feeling like one, and finally becoming one. So the act as if works both ways, just as hypnosis works both ways. As wonderful as hypnosis is, it can be used for terrible destruction. As I've said so many times, you know who the greatest hypnotist of the 20th century was? Adolf Hitler. Literally hypnotized a nation. And 65 million people died as a result of that. The act as if is the primary change agent and must be employed in many ways. Build the act as if the same way an actor builds a character. In fact, become an actor. In one of our earlier sessions, Theater and Therapy Joined Together, I talked about the importance of leading your life as if you were an actor. That might seem a bit abstract, but it's not if you think about it carefully. If you lead your life as an actor, you're going to learn more and more about the act as if and playing different roles, because the actor is playing different roles over his career. In the process, he's learning more about human behavior than any other profession, because that's what his job is, studying what human beings are and how he identifies with every human being, no matter who he's playing. And if you do that and add to it the idea of thinking of your life as a script, which it is. We all have a script. Exactly who we are is our script. A script is comprised of a theme, a plot, conflicts, and resolution, just like a play or a movie. So why not think of your life as a script? What is the benefit? The greatest benefit is that you will recognize how you can change. Because when you're working with plays and movies and scripts and performing artists, you're constantly making changes, revising, rewriting, altering. Part of the process. If we learn it that way, then it becomes a permanent part of the process of change. Systematically transition from acting as if, thinking as if, to feeling as if. Change can be incremental and slowly add up to big points and growing leverage. Incremental change is fine. There's no problem with that. For instance, most people who come to me to lose weight, unfortunately, are looking for one big answer, the answer to their problem with overweight or obesity. And I'll tell them, the chances are that there are going to be about 30 or 40 changes you've got to make. And each one is going to add up incrementally. 8 or 10 of them will have something to do, with how your metabolism operates. 8 or 10 of them will have something to do with diet, but whatever. Incremental change is fine, providing that you are on the road to change and that you're not using that as an excuse to not do all the things you should be doing in life. So you don't want it to be a defense, in other words. Otherwise, it's fine. Practice change. Make it an ongoing, daily part of your life. Use your imagination. There's so many ways of doing this. I'll pose one for you that can be fun or a little bit scary. I want you all to close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to think of changing your name. Keep your eyes closed for about 30 seconds and think about changing your name. What names come up? What visions about that name? What would happen to you if you changed your name? Now change your name in your mind. Begin acting as if you are this new name. Now open your eyes and quickly, I'd like to hear the names you chose. Anyone start?
Emily.
What?
Emily.
Emily, okay.
Suzanne.
Suzanne, okay.
Amelia.
Amelia, okay.
Raphael.
Raphael. Great.
Ninja Turtle.
What? Ninja Turtle, okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Jimmy.
Jimmy?
Lee.
Lee?
Gloria.
Gloria? Barbara, did you come up with one?
Yeah, Christian Decker.
Christian
Christian Decker.
Decker, okay. I already changed my name years ago. So I went from William to Nickolas. I took my father's name, first name. I do that with you because even something like that can be a potential important change in your life, because there are people who are not happy with the names. And I've seen that change life entirely. We had a guy, true story, in prison groups that I ran, and he was a mild guy, a nice guy, intelligent guy. His name was Snooky. Snooky. Well, you can only imagine what hell he had to put up with in prison with the name Snooky. And he was a short-termer. He was going to be cut free in about 7 or 8 weeks. And in one group, I just looked at him and said, Snooky, please don't hit the streets as Snooky. Change your name. And he did, and it really, I heard from him, I think 2 years later. He was now directing a drug rehab program, and he told me, he says, my whole life has gone up as a result of that one single thing I did, just changing my first name. So change can be a very, very exciting process in that way. Practice change, make it ongoing daily. Make changes in the way you deal with loved ones and friends. Balobashi. This is an Indian term coined by that same gentleman I mentioned earlier, Thakur. Balobashi is the Hindu for love. Now, we say, I love you. And most of us use that term pretty frequently, don't we? And there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not against I love you. But Balabashi has an entirely different reality and range of values. Balabashi means I live in your good, as opposed to merely I love you. I can say to my wife, I love you, but when I say Balabashi, I live in your good, that takes on a whole different meaning. My wife gets up early in the morning. She has to be on the road by 6 o'clock. I'm not awake by then. I get up about 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30, and there's dishes in the sink. She's left her coffee mug someplace. She shouldn't. She's forgotten to press the restart button on the computer, and that's going to screw up the computer. Yeah, I can say I love you, but Balabachi, I live in your good. I'm going to take care of all those things. I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to take the coffee mug and put it. I'm going to live in her good. Takes on a whole different range of meaning, and it's just a term, but that language change is immense, just as changing your name can be immense. So add that to your arsenal of tools, that idea of I live in your good as opposed to merely I love you. Develop new habits, hobbies, patterns, and incorporate them into your lifestyle. Try new things. Things you've never done. I had a person working with me and very unathletic, just whole life, no athleticism. And I jokingly suggested to him one day that it would be, come right in and sit, it would be really fun maybe for him to try juggling. And so we talked about it over a period of weeks, and I said, look, it may not be for you, but just for the idea of trying something different. Well, he found a juggling school. It's also a trapeze school, and he got involved with it. He's quite an elderly guy, and he's doing trapeze now. Bravo, wonderful. Don't be afraid of that kind of change. Do something entirely different in your home. Just like Nan does to me when she starts moving things around. Do that yourself. Just for the sake of proving that you can handle change. In fact, do something that will make you feel uncomfortable. Try a different type of music. Is there some kind of music you don't like? Start playing it. See what happens. Type of clothing you don't like to wear? Give it a shot. Food you don't like? My son likes sushi. So he came over the house some months ago, and I'm making salmon the way I always make salmon.
Cook it.
I cook it. I cook it, right. And Billy comes in, and he says, hey, Dad, why don't you, how long do you cook it for? I said, about 12 minutes, 6 minutes on both sides. And he says, well, why don't you try just 3.5 or 4 minutes on each side? I looked at him, I said, what? I said, it's going to be raw. He says, try it, I cook it 3.5 on each side and put it on the table, and I'm going through my, taste it. It was delicious. Try, attempt, don't be afraid of making change. The idea of this is to get into the habit of change so that you're treating change as a normal thing in life as opposed to this frightening enemy thing. Do odd things like doing something you don't care to do or even dislike. Eliminate I can't, I won't, I'll try, I don't know from language. Language is central to everything we do. Words, phrases, sentences, attitudes, beliefs, values are human fuel. Fuels the mind. Check out what you are saying. Check out your language and change it accordingly. You'll find your life changing drastically in the process. While you act as if and practice change, program your mind and body to adjust. Constant balance and adjustment with change. That's part of life. Every single day we have to be prepared to balance and adjust. Balance and adjust to the weather, season, conditions, everything. People you're meeting, work, relationships, balance and adjust. Ongoing process of change. And it really is amazing when you follow that idea and see how you can tweak things and move them along. A little bit here, a little bit there, incrementally there, a large part here. Suddenly begin to realize you are in control of your life. You really have the power to change your whole life. No one's got a gun at your head saying you can't do it. Nobody. Only we have the gun at our head saying we can't, we won't. As you go through the changes, Don't take yourself seriously, laugh instead. Part of our great drama is we take ourselves so damn seriously. Instead of laughing, we're better off laughing. Trust me on that one, we're much better off laughing. Because all the drama in the world, all the seriousness in the world isn't going to change something positively. Not going to help at all. Better to laugh, and I think it was Tucker that said, laugh at your own misery and pain and commiserate with others' pain and misery, but laugh at your own. Don't be serious. The drama gets in the way of effectively changing. Even if it's a big change, don't make it a drama. Laugh at it and go ahead. You're going to be fine. Questions, thoughts, comments on change?
Can you just make distinction between the acting? I think you really kind of did because you focused on act as if, but before, pretending you're an actor has nothing to do with pretending anything or imagining your life to be different. I mean, just make a distinction between it. So when you're talking about being an actor, it sounded like pretending, right? But that's not really what you mean, right?
Most of them, we think of pretense, pretending. It's fake. It's not real at all. The act as if is diabolically real. I'm acting as if I am, as opposed to I'm pretending. A child pretends he is in a fantasy world or something. Questions, thoughts?
No, I was just going to say, you helped me with that when I was worried about giving my presentation, remember?
I remember.
I was worried about the computer not working that day when I was doing the presentation. And she said, act as if it doesn't work and have your plan ahead of time. And so for the next 4 days, I made a backup plan. I acted as if it wasn't going to work. I was prepared for it, and it worked fine. So that was an example of it. I slept so well that night that you had suggested it. Yeah, I prepared myself. Yeah, it felt good to have a backup plan.
The act as if works. I mean, again, it is the primary tool for learning and for change. And if we think of it that way and apply it, and again, the most important thing with all of this is applying it. None of this is meant to be an intellectual or philosophical or even spiritual exercise or examination. It's meant for application. How do you actually do it in your life? Other questions, comments while we're getting ready to wrap? How many of you are going to really change your names?
I have before.
You have before? Okay.
I have two.
Huh? You
I
have two?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
I thought of it once, but I knew my mom would be mad.
I don't think she would. I don't think she would. I think she'd laugh at it.
Well, you could do it now.
I could do it now.
Sorry, Grandma.
All right, Grandma.
Like she was testing.
I see Grandma Peg laughing up there and saying, go ahead and do it, so what? Okay, remember, please, start feeling, start understanding what feelings are. Express them, work with them, process them in a normal way. And don't hesitate changing. It's fun, it's exciting. Embrace change as someone that loves you, as a friend, and you'll get so many benefits from it. But really do it, apply it every day, start doing it.
From God's on board, each day I dine. From the Bering Straits to Palestine, this spring, this brook will ring the bell. No need of wealth, you're in God's hotel. Motto, so do the same. let heaven flow. No pills, no